easy to find cool stuff. I mean, everybody likes to hear things from movies and yes.
Are you gonna give out one of your scripts?
Yeah, I was actually gonna play stuff, but I'm not going to. But yeah, let's take a look at, let's just,
How
for the
long
next
is your
few
Nora
minutes.
Ephron piece? How long is
Well, maybe 10 minutes. Well, it might have been like 13 minutes, something like that. And it could have been shorter. I mean, I have to say, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I could have left out that
it? Can
piece.
I have a little one?
I don't have another.
I will make more copies.
I'm short one. I'm
We
one
can check.
short.
At least Marie's not here.
And I actually have one other one. Well, the only reason I was gonna give you guys this one as well is because this was sort of a more traditional type of script, and like, so I was gonna show you like the one from like August 2011 is more like our normal, what our normal shows are like. And this one that I gave you, this October 27th one of the things I wanted you to see is that I actually did this long commentary in that one about Gone Girl. And the reason, part of the reason I did that was because I wanted to do an interview and I couldn't find anybody. Like, I couldn't get anybody that I wanted to talk, you know, nobody was available. And so I just thought, well, I could put it in the script. So like, sometimes scripting is a way to, you know, if you don't have an interview and there's something you want to talk about, you could talk about it among each other, you know, like maybe if I had more time, or sometimes when Erin was here, we used to like sometimes like have a little conversation among ourselves. So that's one way, you know, it might be more lively if two people were talking about it, especially if you didn't agree. But you can also just write something and put it in the script. And I like doing that. But I did want to give you, this one I think I might actually have enough, some places where you can find more information. One thing is that, yes, last night I was looking on the computer, and on the PA segment of the drive, which is where Women Now are, and this is on that paper that I just gave you, on Women Now, there's a folder called Technical Info, and there's a lot of stuff about script writing in that. Lisa, I think I had enough of
Yeah,
that.
You have enough? Okay.
Yeah.
There's enough for Lisa, Marie?
What was it? So that's,
Well, I can send it to people. I have all this online.
that's a separate drive, the PA drive, or what is it?
Yeah, you'll find it here. So basically,
That's what I networked on yours, on computer,
that
yeah.
one.
there should be
Yeah.
a drive
You can
map
network
to it.
Anywhere.
Or if you go to my network places and look for PA, it'll say PA on Saturday,
Okay.
whatever, however you say that. And then if you go in there, and that's where that's our like permanent, well, it's not exactly permanent, sadly, but, cause every now and then they tell us that it's full and we have to archive stuff off. But that's like where we can store stuff long-term that won't get deleted, cause
Like
if it's intense, it'll get deleted. So if you look in there, there's a folder called Technical Info, and there's actually a number of things about writing, script writing. There's something that there's a handout Brian gave us once. You know, it has some of the same stuff that is on here, but there's more, and there are some other things about script writing, and yeah, and then there's some other good stuff. But, you know, I just wanted to go through some like best practices. A lot of it we've talked about, but just, you know, you want it to be a lot shorter and simpler than your typical writing. You know, if my general rule is if you can put a period in, do it. You know, if you can see a way to break something up into two sentences is usually better than one. But again, I mean, you want to sound comfortable reading it, so, you know, you want it like if how you talk is with a lot of long sentences, some of them are okay, but I would say not more than one every 3 sentences or something. Shouldn't, try not to have dependent clauses. I thought it was interesting. I was thinking about this on my way home last night, and I had the radio on, and I noticed that whoever I was listening to had almost every sentence had a dependent clause. So, while the earth seems to be getting warmer, in some places it's cooler, that's a dependent clause, right? And like almost every sentence was like that. So, every rule's made to be broken, but as they say, usually a good idea to learn the rule before you learn to break it, before you start breaking them. So, I mean, in general, try and keep it short. I would say don't use, don't be Rachel Maddow, don't use more than like 2 statistics per bit of script, like per intro, whatever you're doing, if it's an intro, an outro, we used to just, I don't know, at one point when we were starting, we used to load up so much information in the script, and then I started listening to more stuff and going, people don't do that, I'll try to think, but one thing I do try to do is in the outro, I think it's great after the person, so, in the script, so normally you'll say, something, you'll have a hook to get into the introduction, to tell people why they should listen. Then you're going to want to have, introduction to the guest, Lisa got her degree from Hampshire College, and I'm making this up because I don't really know, but, she went to Hampshire College, and now she works at the Global Fund for Women or whatever, and she's the author of this book, so you'll want that stuff. Then you do your interview, and then in the outro, a lot of times people will just repeat what they had in the introduction. This person's the author of this book, or, this person's reading. Like if they're doing an event or a reading or something, they'll often want to talk about it in the interview. They'll want to spend a lot of time in the interview telling you about their event coming up. I try to discourage that. I mean, sometimes if they're really hot to talk about it, I'll let them talk about it, but I'll listen knowing that I'm not going to put it on the air. And then, I think it's good to have that in the outro, so one of the things that I think makes event pieces, like people used to not like pieces about events because they thought they were really boring. And then when I started doing them, Lisa was like, oh, that was actually not boring. And I'm like, yeah, because we didn't talk about their event. Like, I talked to the person about their work and what's interesting about them, get people excited about going to an event where they're going to be, and then you put the information about the event in the outro. And that way, you know what your outro is going to be. You don't have to write too much, you don't have to be too creative. But I do I think it's great to have like one fact in the outro that wasn't in the intro. So if they've written 3 books, like I think with Roxane Gay, and this one that I gave you with Roxane Gay, I think you'll notice that I had one book in the intro, so Bad Feminist was the book that she was talking about. I had one in the intro and I think a different one in the outro. So instead of listing all her books at the beginning and then listing all her books at the end, try to tell people something a little different at the end than you told them at the beginning. And I mean, I think most people, again, people turn it on in the middle, people don't remember stuff, so if there's something that's really, really important about somebody, I think it's okay to repeat in the outro something that was in the piece itself, but, choose those things carefully, don't just sort of automatically do it. And I mean, good practice, or we used to ask that anytime you submit a piece that you also submit the intro and the outro. I actually don't insist that people do it because I think that good script writing practice is to listen to the pieces and write something yourself. But I mean, if you do it, it's nice to do it, and then hopefully the person rewrites it a little bit, but at least they have the information there, so generally, it's good when you're submitting a piece to submit, the information for the intro and outro. It helps the writer, but I would say if you're the one doing the writing, then don't just use what they gave you. Like, if you're gonna read it, don't just use what they gave you, take it and, rewrite it in a way that sounds like you. And, hopefully you'll listen to the piece and you'll hear something really interesting and you'll think, I'm gonna mention that in my outro. Or, I think it can be really nice to say, hey, I found that really interesting because, like, if Oriana's writing the script and Summer's is doing the interview, then I think it's really nice if Oriana says, wow, I didn't know that, women in Ethiopia, had a matriarchy, 2,000 years ago or whatever, I'm just making stuff up, but, like, to mention something that you learned from the interview, I think it can be really nice, a nice thing to do. So I was gonna have you listen to something and write something, but, we kind of want to get out of here. So what I would do is ask that you do that you give yourself the assignment, or I'm going to give you the assignment and ask you to do it during the week to, just give yourself the assignment to listen to something, listen to an interview, and then think about how you would write. Like, don't listen to the...
Can we pick one so that everybody does the same?
Yeah, I could send you guys a link if you want. I could send you something. And then I would say, okay, I'll send you something, and like, don't listen to the introduction before you do it. Like, I'll just send you...
We should just send...
No, I'll send you a link, something that doesn't have an intro, but I'm just saying, like, don't cheat. Well, I don't really care, but I would say write it and write something, and then maybe we can send them around, and then, people can see what I do.
If you, I remember hearing this live about the Gone Girl stuff, and I thought it was really interesting. And, you could put something about this sort of editorializing at the beginning, at the middle, at the end. Like, how long is this, by the way? Just to know how long
It was
is.
pretty long. I think that piece is actually online, so I can look it up.
Oh, and I thought